The current situation in Tunisia right now is causing a huge split in NATO forces. Before it started, I assume before it started, but clearly evidently right now, there's a huge split in the NATO countries over the organization of the military operation that's going to be taking place in Libya. These conflicts of varying interests have gotten so high that both France and Germany have walked out of the NATO meeting on this situation. The largest opponents of having NATO conducting the military operations inside Libya are France and Turkey. Now, first, France doesn't want NATO to have it because if NATO got it, they're not a huge member of NATO, so their interests would get lost when the restructuring time came. Turkey, on the other hand, doesn't want it because they want the United Nations to have control over the situation. The recent uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt have severely damaged French influence in the region. In fact, their influence there is quickly eroding. Now, this situation in Libya is the same thing is happening. If NATO comes in and takes over, since France doesn't have a major role in NATO, their interests would get lost by the wayside. So they want to keep NATO out of it so they can protect their own interests in Libya and hopefully stop the eroding of their interests within the region. France has had a major part in the building of the war to go into Libya. They were the ones who sent people to Benghazi to get a hold of the opposition. And from there on, they've had a good connection with them. They got backing from the US and the UK to go into the entire situation in NATO. Basically, all these sides have gone in with the express purpose of carving out their own little piece of the Libyan oil. An interesting aspect of this entire situation is the term humanitarian intervention. I mean, this situation, along with those in both Iraq and Afghanistan, have been, while obviously pretexts for imperialist invasion, they've taken on a new kind of, not a new kind, but a feel of their own. It's like the white man's burden kind of situation. We have to go in and rescue these people from themselves, from their own backwards culture and whatever kind of pretext that they make up for this. This new humanitarian intervention, in my opinion, and many others as well, is now the new white man's burden. An important thing to keep in mind that an imperialist invasion of Libya, once the government was defeated and the puppet government installed, what would happen is the US and the UK, specifically them, would now have a new staging post to get forces together to attack other nations who are currently throwing out their dictatorships. What we have is a new base that's set up for imperialist expansion. This whole big conflict of interest among the various imperial nations over the invasion of and who will have command of the invasion of Libya is quite obvious. It is, in the end, like many of the past wars, all about oil. I mean, it's not hard to understand that whoever wins or whoever has their forces in majority, or whoever really has a hand in doing the fighting, or who has control over the command structure of the forces right now and who'd be setting up the government afterward, would obviously be carving out themselves a great piece of the oil contracts that are about to come up. So we could see the huge international competing incentives that exist for this situation. In my personal opinion, I don't think that there's really any chance that Gaddafi is actually going to survive this situation. Gaddafi has said that if the forces don't stop invading them, or that if he somehow survives this whole incident, what he's going to do is give all the oil concessions to Brazil, India, and China to get back at those who had invaded the nation. However, given the recent history, threatening to nationalize the oil industry and selling off its concessions to competing nations really won't prevent him from being invaded. I mean, just ask Iran what happens when you nationalize the oil industry. As I said before, Germany and France both refused to vote on the situation. They both walked out of the meeting. The thing is, recently, both France and Germany have had contrasting positions. They're both trying to push their own influence in the region, and this has been quite evidenced by the actions that they've taken of late to undercut each other. Berlin stopped French plans from building a Mediterranean Union. And France put a stop to Berlin's desire to get UN intervention into the country of Chad. As it stands right now, there are several different imperialist interests all competing for the resources of Libya. And these competing sides that have shown up have created greater and greater hostility to those who aren't even really a part of the conflict. The conflict is between Libya and everybody else. And these everybody else are now fighting with each other over access to the resources that rightfully belong to the Libyan people. If this situation continues, it could escalate into another world war. I don't really think that's going to happen, but there is the possibility. Previous world wars were started over this situation. The imperialist powers are vying for their own power at the expense of Libya, and as a result, they're creating more hostilities between the various imperialist camps. Now, this situation could absolutely only be resolved by the socialist distribution of any oil energy production in the region. Unfortunately, with the US and many other imperialist powers invading, a socialist, proper distribution of wealth and energy resources to those who need it won't happen.